I'm Patrick Gavin, Politico, and I'm joined by Jennifer Beals and Andy Egregious, the Executive Director of Safer Chemicals, Healthy Families. You guys are in town on Tuesday on Capitol Hill for a Stroller Brigade, which is all about getting toxic chemicals out of America, out of everyday goods. Give us a little bit of background on how you got involved in this, why you got involved in it, and what's going to happen on Tuesday.
Well, I think, like a lot of people, I got involved as soon as my daughter was born.
Yeah.
You know, you become aware of all the toxic chemicals that are in our midst, in toys, in bedding, in all kinds of things. And at a certain point, I got tired of trolling through the internet trying to figure out what product was safe and what wasn't safe. I remember there was one time my daughter and I opened a 3D puzzle, and the fumes from the puzzle were so intense that it gave me an incredible headache. She got nauseous, and I thought to myself, what's in there? How could they let that be in there? And then it went on to, there was a synthetic turf field with crumb rubber that was put in at my alma mater in Chicago, and I thought, well, that doesn't seem like it's safe. There's an infill of 30,000 repurposed tires, which carry a Prop 65 sign in tire stores in California, but somehow you know, people think that it's safe for small kids to play on it. And I just thought, how did we get in this situation where I'm having to feel like I need a PhD in toxicology in order to be a competent parent? And then I learned about TSCA, and I learned about the ineptitude of TSCA, and I wanted to get involved to make a change and to really help create strong, meaningful reform toxic chemicals. And
so since you'll be in D.C., what is Washington's role in achieving some of those objectives that you'd like to see get done?
Well, right now there's the Chemical Safety Improvement Act, and I feel like the language isn't strong enough. It doesn't protect everyone. It doesn't protect pregnant women. It doesn't protect children. It doesn't protect vulnerable communities. And my feeling is, if the risk assessment standards aren't for those communities, then it's not for everyone. It's not democratic, and that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see the language change in that bill.
You know, Andy, we were kind of talking off camera about how the late Frank Lautenberg was kind of considered to be a champion for a lot of these causes, but that the bill that bears his name and David Vitter's name now on Capitol Hill is not as good as you would like it to be. Give us a little bit of a status on where that legislation is and why it's lacking, according to you.
Sure, thank you. It's in this.
And also, sorry, and how much of that is because of the fact that he is now passed and not able to take a more active role, or is it simply because the legislation was always not up to snuff for you?
I think the legislation, Sarah Lautenberg was a champion of the reform for a long time that all the public health and environmental communities supported, and just only a couple weeks before his death, he created this deal with Senator Vitter. Senator Manchin actually brought them together. Senator Vitter was going to have his own bill, and instead Senator Manchin brought them together to try and come up with a compromise. And I think they had a week to do it, basically, and they just got stuff wrong. I mean, there doesn't need to be a sinister motivation behind it.
Well, you're in D.C., why not?
Why not?
Be a skeptic.
But there's some basic standards out there. So the good news is there's a bipartisan vehicle. It's got 26 co-sponsors, and it's before the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. That kind of breadth of support is the kind of thing that means it can maybe get done. The House is talking about doing their own bill, so that's good. The bad part is the details, as Jennifer said.
You know, you said you got involved in this because of your daughter, and I'm curious that the fact that you're signed on to this, that they've got a big celebrity drawing attention, we're obviously here interviewing. Is that at all a reflection of the fact that this issue hasn't gotten enough attention so far? Meaning, I mean, I remember when I first saw that you were coming into town, I thought, well, it must be difficult getting this on the agenda, which perhaps is why you're here. When there's Syria, which is coming off the government shutdown. Now we're looking at immigration reform, and there's another budget deadline. There's so many other issues that dominate the news cycle in this town. Is that part of your goal, and perhaps part of the reason why you're teaming up with Jennifer, is because there haven't been enough eyeballs on this so far?
I think that there haven't been enough eyeballs on it, for sure, and I think there's a lack of scientific journalism as well, and Nick Kristof pointed that out in a recent article. But I feel like when you enter into the sacred state of parenthood, you start to figure these things out, because you start to hear about the rise of ADHD, you start to hear about the rise in autism and pediatric cancer, and you start to learn that it's not all genetically based. and you try to figure out, well, what can I do about it? And I think there's a lot of helplessness, feelings of helplessness among parents, and there's an attempt sometimes to shop around the problem. But for me, I'm deeply aware that not everybody has the ability to shop around this problem.
Right.
Not everybody can afford it. And for me, I want to make sure that everybody is safe.
I think you're right. The key words in what you said, I think, are in this town. We've been this issue has been succeeding in sort of the real world. Walmart and Target just announced major policies to restrict the chemicals in their supply chain, reacting to the concern of parents like Jennifer and others around the country. So the public support and action at the state level has been there in the marketplace, but getting it on the agenda in a real way in Washington. So not only is it on the agenda, but on the agenda to do the right thing and to get the details right is the hard part. And that is where we have turned to folks like Jennifer. We're very glad to have her here, as well as hearing from folks in the district. So I want to turn a lot of the consumer power that's made a difference into a more political power, to have the same moms that are shopping and getting Walmart to change what it's doing are talking to their members of Congress and getting them to get the federal government to get on the ball.
We were saying off camera, like, there are acceptable levels. I mean, there was a documentary called Unacceptable Levels that the law actually says there's a level beneath which it's okay if you're exposed to, right? I mean,
right. And then the question is,
so is the goal then shrinking those levels or just annihilating them completely?
For most chemicals, levels like that have not been set, especially for when they're used in consumer products.
Yeah.
So part of the problem is that even for the vast majority of chemicals that you come into contact with, from a mixture of the environment, but also the products in your home or in your workplace, you actually don't, the federal government hasn't done the work to say, oh, at what point does this cause harm? And gee, are people getting exposed to that level or above it? That we actually don't have that system in place right now.
And to whom does it cause harm? Does it cause harm to a pregnant woman? Does it cause harm to a child? Does it cause harm to an asthmatic child? As opposed to a 200-pound healthy man?
Yeah.
So those are the risk assessments, I think, that need to be looked at more carefully.
Lastly, are there any folks on Capitol Hill, or dare I say one party or the other, that's especially supportive of what you're trying to advocate here? People that you would cite as leaders, or one party or the other?
Well, I think Senator Boxer, the chair of the Environment and Public Works Committee, has made it clear that she doesn't want this legislation to move unless these same issues are addressed. And so we definitely support her call to make sure these are addressed. But I give Senator Vitter credit, who's the remaining original co-sponsor on the bill, that he has said publicly that he has heard a bunch of these concerns and is willing to negotiate with her over it. So we are cautiously optimistic, to use a Beltway type term, that they could actually negotiate over this and improve the bill to the point where it's a credible, meaningful reform.
And it's exciting that it's a bipartisan bill. I mean, everybody wants to protect their children.
Right.
Everybody wants to protect pregnant
You'd hope.
mothers,
Right.
That's, I think, sort of a no-brainer.
All right, Jennifer Beals, Andy Iglesias. It's the Stroller Brigade that takes place on Capitol Hill on Tuesday. Literally strollers and literally a brigade. That would be great.
Every mom is trained in jiu-jitsu for the event. Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
very much.